Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We've got a great new episode for you today. And yeah, I am excited for you to meet today's guest. Tom Fabbri is one of the most fascinating, interesting people that I think I've ever met. In fact, for years, I've said my good friend Miles Riley is the most interesting man that I know. And Tom is giving Miles a run for his money. Uh, Tom is a former top bodybuilder who turned into a pilot, both for helicopters and airplanes, turned into a mountaineer, and who has stood on a mountain and given a speech via a phone for several thousands of miles away. Now, I'm excited for you to hear his story because I can't even do it justice. Now, Tom, like many, many people who have accomplished a lot in their life, has a fascinating story. It's a story of struggle, a story of growth, a story of overcoming, a story of endless positivity and entrepreneurship, and a story of faith and building a life, crafting a life that is one of meaning. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Tom Fabbri. And thank you for listening to this episode of The Evolved Man. Welcome to The Evolved Man, where we are at war with the mediocrity of modern man. The Evolved Man is for men like you who are willing to be strong, open, and aggressive learners. Men who are not afraid to disrupt and change. It's time we ditch the current conventional idea that we devolve with age, that the dad bod is our destiny, and that the glory days are behind us. Your best isn't behind you, and I'm here to provide you with practical tools, a few tips and tricks, and everyday wisdom to help you evolve into your highest form. Strong, lean, smart, educated, and emotionally intelligent. Now, let's go to war. Well, Tom Fabbri, well, I can honestly say that I've never had a Dos Equis. I can say that when we met, I felt like I met the man that was in the commercials, the most interesting man in the world. The first time that we talked, I mean, from bodybuilding to flying helicopters and jets, from being a chef to an inventor, a writer, an entrepreneur. I mean, you've lived a life that is the real embodiment of this idea of the most interesting man in the world. Welcome to the show. It is so great to have you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. And it's it's interesting that you brought that up. Those commercials were some of my favorite commercials. And you're not the first person to
I
say
can't imagine I am. Yeah.
that, but I've been called other things too, in my earlier life,
Good and bad, right?
oh yeah, good. But these days, I look at it as all the struggles, and all the struggles were self-induced. They are, you have to take
Mm.
responsibility for your actions. And but now they are a blessing in my life. They are lessons in my life. And I remember my cousin telling me years ago, he's like, if you want to become everything that you're talking about, you need to own your story.
I love that.
Just, own it. Just be vulnerable and be out there and good or bad. And that's what I did. And when I give a talk, I just share those things, all the homelessness, the divorces, the bankruptcy, living in my car, being in and out of jail, and just on and on, and the drinking, and just all these things, the bullying. I was
Mm.
bullied, and then I became
Okay.
bullied. It's a great story, but those things shaped who I am today. They shaped who I am today.
You mentioned when we talked before that, and referenced right now that the openness of owning your story has been the key to several turnarounds in your life. Give our listeners an overview of how have you accomplished so much in such a short life so far.
Embracing fear and risking. I tell people that I risk it all because this is the only life that I have. And, some of my heroes growing up, Jacques Cousteau, I
Mm.
don't know if you remember that name.
Yeah, very much.
Um, when I was a little kid, I had these dreams of being like Jacques Cousteau, but my own adventurer, how I saw adventure.
Hmm.
But um, I was going down a wrong path. And it took a while to find the right path. And that's how life is. You have to realize, well, this job isn't good for me, or this marriage isn't good for me, or this education isn't good for me. And you have to have the courage to change it up and really follow, some people call it your dharma, right? Your
Right.
purpose.
Right. Yeah.
And it took me a long time, but I found my purpose because when I started stepping into my purpose, just overcoming those fears and taking those simple steps, doors started opening up for me. And when I really wanted to change my life, and I was like 28 years old, and that's quite a while. It's quite, it didn't happen overnight, but I wanted to learn how to fly and fly helicopters and corporate helicopters. And everybody was like, you? And I was told I was too old and I didn't have the education because I didn't go to college.
Too old
You
at
know,
28.
what's that?
You were too old at 28?
Well, back then, most of the pilots were military pilots, Vietnam
Okay.
era pilots,
Okay.
and so corporate helicopter flying wasn't very prominent back then. But, I decided to take it on. And, it took me, 3.5 years of learning, three jobs, bellhopping, working in a deli, and I was working at an airport. And so just to pay for flying lessons, but just, facing the fear of wanting to fly, because I was actually afraid of pilots because I thought pilots, oh, they're just, this big ego. And um, I didn't have the self esteem that I needed to become a pilot. But as I stepped into it, my whole life started to change. Like I said, doors were opening, people wanted to help me, but there was still a lot of adversity and struggles to overcome. Financial, how am I going to get a job? Where am I going to go? But those things, you have to make it happen, but it will happen. I believe the universe will open up the doors for you, and that starts, like I said, with a self belief and self esteem.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about taking risks and really risking it all, and you also discussed the idea that making, realizing that sometimes you're on the wrong path and you have to take some different paths. I mean, you're a mountaineer, and in the mountains, oftentimes we get on the wrong path. We think that we're on the right path, and we think we're going in the right direction, and sometimes we have to backtrack because we realize we're not on the right path to get to the destination that we're going. Talk about the risk and the fear that comes in with recognizing that maybe you're on the wrong path in life and you have to make that adjustment. What's involved in that?
Um, it's it's really listening to your intuition and your gut, right? And a lot of times we don't want to do that because people, and I say people, teachers, society, friends, parents will be telling us how they think we should be living.
Mm.
and that's their opinion. And I like to tell people that, you know, those are just other people's wishes for us, other people's opinions, and it's none of our business what they think of us, right? But it takes a lot of courage to overcome the naysayers, the people who really, well, they want the best for us, right? They want the best for us. And, you know, I learned, I started learning that early on in grade school when, you know, I grew up Irish Catholic and Italian, but I went to a parochial school from second grade all the way through 12th grade. And it was, I'd say, one of the worst experiences of my life,
Mm.
you know, with the beat down. And so it took a lot to overcome that. You know, well, you're not good enough. Your grades aren't good enough. Just a lot of that. And that really shapes you. And it takes a lot of courage to say, you know what? I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to listen to that. But it took me a long time, you know, and that's why I got into the bodybuilding early on. And, but that became a shell for me. I trained with Frank Zane. He's a
Oh,
famous bodybuilder.
I was just going to ask if you trained with Frank because Frank talks about I trained with Frank as well, and he said that that exact same phrase: the bodybuilding at the beginning becomes a shell for you.
It becomes a shell for you.
Yeah.
And he told me, he's like, you know, really what you're doing and building up this body and you're putting on a shell. But
Hmm.
he's like, you're probably trying to please your father. And that's what I was trying to do all these years. You know,
Yeah.
even when I became a captain at the airline, and then after the airlines went away, I got a job flying for the owner of the Cleveland Browns, you know, the football team. And then my father said to me, he's like, well, you finally made it. And he said that because his love was football.
Oh,
And
interesting.
but I'm like,
Interesting.
I finally made it, you know. But a lot of my earlier years were trying to please him, and I could never. You can't please other people. You shouldn't have to try to please other people. You know, start with yourself. Start with self love. Start loving yourself because self love is intrinsic. But
Right.
you know, I tell people it's kind of beaten out of us, and it was beaten out of me. So I had to find it again. But that's my theory on stepping into it. Takes a lot of courage. It really does, you know, to change your life and go and cut your own path.
Well, because you're essentially becoming a leader of your own life. And, before we started the recording, we were talking about leadership and how our leadership in the country, whether it be in politics or business, has really become soft and complacent. And our society has leaned into this idea that we should be looking for what we can get rather than what we can give. And true leadership, I think you and I are on the same page with this, is about how do we lead out with courage? How do we lead out with conviction? But also, how do we lead out with being open enough to stay um, eyes wide open as we go through this path? But it takes risks.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about this idea of leadership and how we as individuals, when we step into our more evolved version of ourselves, how does that open doors for other people?
Well, people are looking. They're hungry for leaders. They're hungry for leadership. But a lot of today's leaders, they're in it for what's in it for me. They're in it for the cash grab. They're in it for the power. They're hungry for the power. But if you're vulnerable enough to step out into your own purpose, right? You have to find your own purpose, whatever that is. And that's, you know, Robin Sharma said it best: leadership without a title. We do not need titles.
Right.
Just go out and live your best life.
Hmm.
You know, one of my things, and I've been doing this for years, is, you know, when I'm taking a walk and it doesn't matter what city I'm in, if I see some trash on the ground, I'll pick it up and I'll carry it with me
I love
until I
that.
find a trash can or a dumpster or something. And I've been in places. I remember I was up in Rochester, New York, and I was at a stoplight, and there was like, and I was walking, and there was like 15 people around me, and I saw some garbage about 20 feet away. I went over, I picked it up, and then I walked across the street and threw it in the a garbage can across the street. And a bunch of people, they're like, "Wow, what what?" And they started picking up some garbage on the
Mhm.
street. And I didn't tell them to do it. It was just the right thing to do. And a lot of times people would say, well, what are you doing? What do that's ridiculous, go and pick up somebody else's garbage. And especially in today's society, everybody's, a germaphobe or whatever, and so, but that doesn't bother me, but that's courage stepping out.
Yeah.
And I love the planet. And, one of my missions after I'm done doing what I'm doing with speaking and books and, is to help save the oceans. That's like one of my really big purposes, but it takes that courage. You don't need permission from anybody. You don't need permission from anybody. So that's where stepping into your courage, we have freedoms in this country. I tell people we won the lotto being here.
Mm.
And so I've been around the world. I've been in Africa. I've been in India. And I've seen what real hardship and poverty and struggle is with different cultures. And we have won the lotto, but we're not grateful. We're not grateful. And so, but, going back to being vulnerable and courage and the freedoms that we have here, we have freedom of choice, but people don't want to exercise it because they're afraid.
Well, and afraid
People,
to take accountability for what they do, right? I mean, for what we do, I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I recently talked to John G. Miller, who's the author of QBQ, The Question Behind the Question, and John has been speaking for 30 years on the concept of personal accountability, and that idea is more useful and more needed today, I think, than anywhere else. This idea that you could walk down a street, pick up some trash, walk across the street, throw it away. No one's going to know about it. No one's going to give you a medal of honor for that. But it significantly changes society if we all take the leadership to do these small things.
yes, imagine, there's like 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah,
Imagine if everybody did that once a day, and just the impact that it would have on society. Just everybody just kind of giving because it's giving is the right thing to do. It
because it
just
becomes natural. Yeah,
yeah. And then, it actually empowers you to do other things. Well, if I can do that, and I may be criticized, but I mean, it's the right thing to do. The ones criticizing are the ones who are afraid, right? I
right.
think it was Roosevelt who wrote that The Man in the Arena,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah. Great.
About the
Great
critics.
writing. Yep.
And these days, I embrace it. I just like, give me more. Fe- if you want to criticize, I'm I'm fine with it because internally, I know through my heart that I'm doing the right thing. At least I'm attempting to do the right thing. I make mistakes all the time, and I've learned that uh, failure in this society, failure is a bad thing. That's the perception, but failure is learning, and learning is winning, right? Failure are the lessons that we're learning,
Right.
and learning is
Right.
winning. So winning is winning. It's a win-win. So failure is
I
just
like
it's,
that.
it's winning. Yeah. Yeah, so it's but you have to be willing to make the mistakes, and that's where that risk it all, risk it all. I mean, if you're living in your purpose and you risk, for me, risk is, I mean, they're all calculated risks. They're all calculated. I train um, 6 days a week, and I work on my physical as well as my mental, spiritual well-being. This morning I got up early, journaled, prayed, meditated, did my workout with my bar, and then jumped on I have a Peloton bike as well, and did some cardio, and then prepared for your show, and like my day is almost complete, but um, self-care is important. There's a lot of facets that go into what we're talking about. It's not one thing, right? When you say the evolved man, we have to evolve into our dharma, right? Our purpose. And that takes courage, because the way I see society today, I think we mentioned this before when we talked. There's a lot of sheeple running around,
Yes. Yeah.
a lot of people that are afraid, and fear is fine. There's nothing wrong with fear, but fear helps you, right? I tell people you should be scaring yourself at least once a week, if not once a day,
Yeah.
because that's a growing opportunity. It's a growing opportunity.
Well, the reality is, without fear, excuse me, we can't really express faith in a positive way. It's not. We don't have this strong muscle of faith if we're not experiencing fear. I mean, if I get up and everything in my life is completely safe, then I don't have to have faith to move forward. I don't have to have a belief. I don't have to be vulnerable. I'm just comfortable, right? And moving forward with a sense of purpose and faith, it does create some fear inside of us. And I know that your faith and belief is an important aspect of your overall health and wellness journey, as you just referenced. How have your beliefs impacted how you have shown up to life?
You mean in reference to overcoming the fear, or just is?
Yeah, overcoming fear, but also just creating the life that you've been able to create.
Well, part of it is the realization that I'm going to die someday. And, although I believe that I have at least another 60 plus years to go, I do. That's just in my
Mm,
DNA now.
yeah,
I'm strong, I'm
that's great.
healthy, I'm young. Um, but the faith has been a learned thing. When I grew up and I went to parochial school, I thought, but you're told you have to go. You have to go. And my mom wanted me to be a priest. And I didn't really, that wasn't my dream as a little kid. But faith then, or what Catholicism, was the beatdown. You're a sinner,
Mm,
and all the, all of that. And I'm like, I'm not a sinner. As a little kid, you know, and so I left the church, and I think that for me, that took a lot of courage to just walk away from all that.
right.
But as I started stepping into my purpose, then I realized that I had a power within me. And part of that power was a spiritualness that was coming into my life, because I was like, if I can do this, and that realization was, flying. I was a captain at an airline, which I could have never imagined. And I'm flying from LA to Cincinnati. It's 2 in the morning, and I'm with Naval Academy and Air Force Academy pilots, and I'm the captain. And they're like, "How did you get here?" And it was just like hard effing work. I worked my
Mhm.
ass off. But I'm like, if I can do that, if I can do this, I can do anything. And the question started coming to me, well, how did you do that though? And how can I do that? And, I just became a fanatic about learning, reading, self growth, taking it, and it all started really with taking care of the body and then stepping into other things. And I'm like, people are asking me now how to, right? How can I become better? How can I become healthier? So that's when I'm like, I need to write a book, you know. And then writing a book led to me being on a TV show, a cooking show, and I'm teaching people how to cook. And after 9/11, then I put myself through culinary school. And just so and then I was on this treadmill of learning and stepping into bigger and bolder things. But prior to all these things, I was afraid to just really talk to anybody because of the no's that were coming my way, right?
Mhm.
People saying,
Mhm.
no, you can't. No, you're not smart enough. No, you don't have an education.
Mm.
Uh, no, you're too old. And I'm like, you know, well, I've changed that now. And it's for me, and it's moving forward with all of my dreams. All of my dreams. Yeah, I've invented this product which came about through the mountain climbing. And I took on the mountain climbing because I was flying with somebody, and he came back from Mexico, and he was climbing a volcano down there for his vacation. And I'm like, "You were climbing volcanoes?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so he told me about it. He's like, "Go out to Mount Rainier in Seattle." And that started that. But that was a hard lesson to learn because it kicked my butt.
Mhm.
And I think I'm in great shape, because of the bodybuilding and the training. And I'm like, well, I'm not. I may look good, but I'm really not in shape.
Not
So
for that type of thing. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
So Tom, I
So
want to I want to come back. You mentioned something when we talked before, and you referenced it just a second ago that there were several people along this path, this journey that you've been on that had inadvertently helped you become successful because they told you that you couldn't do something. They were the naysayers. I'd love to have you talk about how opposition helped to craft who you are today, because you've experienced several things. You've accomplished many things in life. How did this opposition help you to accomplish these things that you've accomplished?
because I realized when people were telling me no, that was their opinion. I was at that point, I was reading a lot of books. If you looked at my desk right now, I have books, The Power Within. I have another book here, which is, I highly recommend this book
Oh,
here.
that's a great one. That's on my desk as well.
No way, is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. You know, I have another book here. I just surround myself with, David Sinclair, Lifespan, Why We
Oh,
Age
I
and Why
don't
We
have
Don't
that one.
Have to.
I'll have to pick that one up. Yeah.
And I I sort of went from external things to internal things. Meditation, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of reading, a lot of reading. And the reading, it was all self-help, right?
Mm-hmm.
Robin Sharma's stuff, and Jim Rohn and even Tony Robbins,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff because I was looking to learn, but not in a traditional sense. I felt I needed more philosophical learning about the self, learning about the body, learning about the mind, learning about love. And I didn't feel I could get that in a traditional education by going to college. And, so
Isn't that
It was
fascinating how we think about like traditional learning? I had someone say this to me the other day as we were talking about health and wellness. And he said, you know, we're never taught this in school. We're never taught how to take care of ourselves. We're never taught how to love ourselves. We're never really taught how to eat well so that we can stay healthy. Like we're taught basics that by and large are okay, but they oftentimes are misguided. But we're really never taught that. And so life becomes a journey of self discovery. And as we start to look inward, we find things that we can, not just from an intellectual standpoint, learn, but we truly learn then when we apply.
exactly. And that's where you'll find what I'm learning is spirituality and self-growth and self-love. They start within. We are really divine individuals, but we're not taught that.
No, no.
And we are. We have, look at some of the people over history, like even in real time, an Elon Musk or Richard Branson or Thomas Edison or Einstein, or I mean, you could look at these people and they went from zero to hero, just following their purpose and going through all the struggles and all the failures. And those are my heroes. And so become your own hero, become your own hero. But that takes courage. That takes overcoming fear. That takes overcoming what society says. And so now, for me, going through all of those struggles, um, I embrace the struggle now because I've learned that through the struggle, it's like I'll give you an easy example. When we go through a storm, what's on the other side of that storm? It's going to be a beautiful sunrise or sunshine, or there always is. It's a must. I think life is meant to be hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what I talk about in my book, Ageless You, is we've designed our lives now to where everything is easy, everything is accessible, everything, we have everything at our fingertips, and we become soft and lazy with everything,
Mm-hmm.
especially self-growth and learning. And we see that everywhere. And if you want to talk about the physicality of it, things that are happening in today's society, the obesity rate is, I think, at like 68% of the population here in the US.
Yeah, which is
And
shocking because we were around 70% for just people being overweight, but now we're pushing 70% of obesity at this point.
obesity,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Diabetes, cancer. I mean, it's just on and on. And we've become complacent, and we're collateral damage for big pharmaceuticals. I mean, if you look at the TV, every commercial is about some new drug, about how to get this or that, and people are like,
Mhm.
the next thing they're going to be doing is they're going to be sewing up people's mouths so they can't. We have bariatric surgery and all these things. I'm like, what is happening? And it takes a little bit of discipline. Takes a little bit of discipline, to take care of your body, to eat right. These are all habits that we build upon, but we're afraid to do so. And now it's really become, in a very short time, it's become the norm to be unhealthy, right? I
Right.
mean, people over 60 are taking at least more than 5 medications. And when I read that, I was just shocked. I
Yeah, I
was
think I
just
read the average was between 5 to 8 medications for people over 60 on average. And that's the average. So that means some people are taking much more than that.
Yeah. So what has happened? And so going back to like myself, my purpose has become to serve. And I want to do it on a large scale. I want to serve the world. And that's why the books, the speaking, the my total motion product, those things came to me organically, but they also came to me by stepping into, oh my God, how do I become an author? you
Yeah.
know, how do I write? How do I invent a product? But I tell people the good Lord, whatever the good Lord is to you, right? It could mean the universe, it could mean, and my faith is based on the person Jesus Christ who walked the earth, some years ago, and um, he lived a meaningful life, right? And it's really not about Catholicism or any type of organized religion. It's just how he saw things, right? And so that's people ask me, "Oh, are you a Christian?" And I say, "No, I'm not." so I just say I'm Christ-like. And I've been approached by people who are like, "Are you a minister?" And no.
You,
They're
yeah,
like,
you
"What's
wear
this aura
cross around
about
your
you?"
neck, right? Yeah.
Well, I do, and people are like, they ask me about it, and so it was something that if people ask me about my faith, then I'll just tell them in simple terms what my faith is. But that's just like the books or the mountain climbing. I don't talk about that. But if it comes up, what do you do? How do you stay in shape and what's going on? And, those types of things like we talked about on Sean Hannity's show. I mean, he's another great interviewer, right? Asking the right questions so you can pull it out.
Yeah,
And
you were on Sean's show last week, is that right?
yeah, Friday, the
Yeah.
23rd. But for me, it's just another part of a process of where I'm heading. And I see an opportunity for me to reach a larger audience. And so I'm going to throw it out that I want to be a contributor on his radio show. And the things because we talked about going to Everest, and he's like, what does it take to go to Everest? And that takes a lot of grit and determination and faith and, stepping out. But I see, excuse me, reaching a bigger audience to serve because I think it's needed. I think we need it, you
Well, it
know.
really is. And we talked obesity, but I think one of the other things that was fascinating to me about your story is that most people in the world will never get a chance to stand on the mountains that you've been able to stand on, and to do some of the things that you've never or that you've done, primarily because they may not have the desire or they just don't have the opportunity. They choose not to. But there are Mount Everests of people's lives that they have to overcome. And given that many men struggle with a sense of significance, they turn to substances and they turn to those substances as a substitute. Now, you found a way to overcome that in your life. What got you out of turning to substance for a sense of significance?
Well, substances were too much drinking, um, fear, laziness, um, just trying to think back on my life back then, and it was really I had a self-destructive attitude because growing up I had been bullied and I became a bully, and so those things that I was internalizing, fear, hatred for my life I had to overcome, but I had to really release it. And I saw the errors of my way, especially with the bullying. That really shaped me because, my father told my older brother, you get him boxing or weightlifting, or, I'm tired of him being bullied. And I was a little kid. And so everything that I went through, really the alcohol and the drugs was a manifestation of hating my life. And I didn't think I'd live to be like 21 years old. I was on this path that my life has no significance. So what the hell, And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but the journey um, started to shape me. The journey of you know the training and the bodybuilding, and I got satisfaction out of that. But as we said earlier, I had all this pent up hatred, and I saw the physicality sort of building in me, but also releasing all of that pent up hatred and energy. And I was taking it out on other people. I was taking it out on myself,
Mhm.
but also on other people. So I became the bully. And and after some horrific things happened to me, I realized that if I want, and the realization was meeting some pilots and seeing the life that they were living. They were kind of living this adventurous life, and that intrigued me. And that happened, just meeting them happened at a young age. And just those thoughts of wanting to become a helicopter pilot sort of saved me, because I'm like, well, if I want to do that, I have to stop doing this, right? The self abuse and self destruction, and it was really more partying and drinking and, you know, being a bully. That's a nice word to put it, being a, but I started changing because when I wanted to become a pilot, as we said earlier, people started coming into my life and wanted to help me become a pilot. And I saw that help and I embraced it. And I became a pilot, and people were like, wow, okay, that's kind of impressive. And so then when I became a pilot, I really started diving into, back then we had the cassette tapes and all that,
Yeah.
of self growth.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is my education. This is my education. I graduated high school, but I had to go to summer school. But when I graduated, they gave me a blank diploma. So just to
Okay.
kind of go through the motions, and I'm like, but that's, to me now, that's a great story, because life really is an education. And so I embrace that now. But that's part of the struggle.
Well,
And
it
when
sounds
I
like as you move towards certain things, you were moving away from other things, and I think that it's something very interesting to explore. It's an idea that I don't think we play with enough. That instead of saying I don't want something in life, as soon as we say I do want something, then the world opens up in a totally different way. I've
Yeah,
you know this because you've been in the health and fitness space for a long time, but having been in health and fitness for almost a quarter of a century myself, I don't have to browbeat my executive clients to not eat certain things. In fact, very rarely do we talk about what you shouldn't eat, because as soon as they decide what it is that they want to go towards, there are so many doors that open up in that direction, but there are many that close behind them because they don't want to continue to feel the way that they felt. And so for you, becoming a pilot meant, hey, I probably can't be out partying. I probably can't do these other things because I'm going to get arrested. And so I want to move in a different direction. And I'd love to get your take on this, but I almost see that as a path of love rather than a path of fear. You're moving towards something you love rather than moving away from something that you're afraid of. What are your thoughts?
You're 100% correct, but to take that path of love or self-love is a difficult choice because you will get
Very.
the naysayers. You know, it's
Hmm.
it's a hard thing to do because there will always naysayers.
Right.
And but I've overcome so many hardships, and I still have hardships. You know, I woke up this morning and, my wife, Rhonda, has stage 4 breast cancer,
Mhm.
right? And my son is dealing with a disease that is causing depression, and he's going through some huge struggles. And I'm like, why? Why? I ask the questions and I journal about it. I journaled about it this morning and I prayed about it. And it's to help me help others.
Mm.
It's to help me to help others. I have to because when you are vulnerable enough to express your feelings to others, just to be totally open, that opens a door for the other person or people to express what they're going through because
Mm.
everybody is going through something. Everybody. And it may not be a physical thing, it could be a financial thing, we don't know, right? A loss of a job, loss of a loved one. I mean, that's what I've experienced, when I open up about all the adversities that were self-induced and that I have overcome. But the lessons learned will always be there, but there's more lessons. These are lessons for me, like, say, for instance, with my wife, right? That's brought the realization of live, as Brian Johnson talks about, moment to moment,
Mm.
right? Moment to moment. You know, this is, where you want to be. This is where you are. Close the gap. That's the struggle, right? That's the
Mhm.
struggle in there.
Right.
Close the
Yeah.
gap, you know. Um, and and now I think of Tom Cruise. He's like, with me,
Without me.
without me.
One of my favorite lines. My wife and I joke about that all the time.
Yeah, we
This
do
is what
too.
your chances are with me, without me.
Yeah, and
Such a
I
great
think
movie.
most of us really, I think we really want to be up here,
Right.
but we just don't know. People are like, where do you get I climb mountains because that's kind of like my Achilles heel. I told Sean that I'm afraid of heights when on his radio show. He's like, "What? You're flying jets and you're climbing mountains?" Like, well, I started the mountain climbing because I was intrigued, and then I was afraid of it because it was kicking my ass. Just trying to summit and go through the altitude and the weather and the exertion of doing it. But then, and I was like, well, I have something to prove. That was my initial, because I went to Africa and I climbed Kilimanjaro. Then I went to Russia, climbed Mount Elbrus, and it was super hard. But somehow I was successful. And then it became this thing where it's not really about me. It's about showing people that because everybody uses the metaphor, well, we all have mountains to climb. Well, I'm doing it
You're actually
and
climbing them.
I'm actually climbing them, but that's my thing. But it's just there to show people that we all have mountains to climb. I'm doing it. I didn't want to be some guy behind a desk disseminating information. I wanted to tell the stories of what it takes to overcome the struggles that we all face in our daily lives. And so I take those stories. I've seen death, people dying on the mountain and been caught in hellacious storms, and just hanging on for dear life. But to me, that's living. It's kind
Yeah.
of, it's living on the edge, but that's my life. That's my life.
Talk about the seven summits. Now, this is something that I not probably not all of our listeners understand what the seven summits are. Um, what is this that you're chasing, and how far along are you?
Well, it's been a journey for sure. Just like the bodybuilding to win the natural Mr. Universe, I thought was going to take a short time. It took me 6 years. Whatever you're doing, it'll probably take 10 times as long. And so, but the seven summits is the highest peak on each of the seven continents. And for me, when I started looking at it, it encompassed a lot of things for me, a lot of adventure, travel, right? Meeting new people, going to new cities, going to different countries, and then the preparation of climbing a high peak with the high altitudes, the endurance it takes, the nutrition. You're gone for 3 to 4 weeks.
Hmm.
And so I was intrigued about it. And really, Everest, I never thought I'd be at this point in getting training for Everest. I never thought I'd make that, but just one step at a time, you know, as we climb any kind of mountain, put your head down, just take that one step at a time. And that's a true statement. Because if you look up at the mountaintop, you'll be like, no effing way.
Hmm.
Turning around, this is too, but just day by day, one step at a time. And so, um, but there's a bigger picture too with the seven summits. I've done six of the seven right now, with Everest being next. But after that, I've taken on they call it the Explorers Grand Slam or the Adventurers Grand Slam, which is the seven summits, and then skiing to the North Pole.
Hmm.
And then I've already been to Antarctica, but I'll go back to ski to the physical South Pole. Right. And so far, um, there's only been two Americans to have done that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah, there's
interesting.
been, I think, total like 43 people in the world that have done that, but to different degrees. Some people, if you wanted to ski to the South Pole, they would be dropped off at like 60 miles from the South Pole by ski plane, you
Okay.
know, and then ski to that point, 60 miles. Well, I don't want to do that. I'm going to be dropped off at the Blue Ice Field, and it's a 660-mile ski trip.
Wow.
Takes like 3 weeks to ski to the physical South Pole. So
So
I want to
similar timeline to as hitting some of these seven summits. Then.
well, it's taken like 12 years,
Yeah.
with
Right.
with work and family, and some people have done it in a year. I mean, but that life has a way of sidetracking you, or you put other priorities, and so but everything for a reason. Now I'm really embracing this ageless you lifestyle. And Sean asked me on the radio show, he's like, well, how old are you, Tom? He's just kind of throwing that out there. And I said, I'm not. And he's like, what? I said, I can tell you when I was born, but I'm not old,
Yeah.
And I said,
It's a great answer.
yeah, I mean, how do I feel? I feel like I'm in my late 20s, 28, 29, 30, and I just feel phenomenal. I'm just like, I'm ready to go. And I think we
So
all
when
should be.
so when were you born then?
1958.
58. And you feel like
Yeah.
you're in your 20s.
Yeah. And see, if I can do this, it's like anybody can do it. And I see people struggling. It's really upsetting to me. People struggling on so many levels, and you can see it in their faces, right? You can see that they're unhappy, and you can see it in their bodies where, I meet some people that they're in their late 40s and 50s, and they look like they're pushing 70-ish, you know? And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why? But it just comes down to simple education. I don't have a formal education, but I educated myself on health and wellness and nutrition, and there is a lot to learn, but I've learned about my body and how to feed my body and how to take care of my body. And I've had lots of clients, and people are still, they're afraid of what other people will say. If you go out to dinner with a bunch of folks and you're the only one that's gonna maybe get lots of vegetables and a piece of protein and some lemon water or ice water or whatever, and people look at you kind of strange, but really they're like, I think I want to order that too, but
Yeah.
you're afraid to because somebody else might be ordering French fries and whatever, but um, but the Seven Summits have really opened, and they're opening more doors for me, and that's just really pushing into my purpose. And once I'm done with that, there's, you know, if I let you look at my journal and all my dreams and goals, it's just like it's endless. And I think it was I think it was Robin Sharma maybe who said, you know, a healthy person has 1,000 dreams,
Yeah.
and a sick person has one dream.
Mm. That's pretty powerful. I never thought I don't know that I've ever heard that, but that's true.
So
Well,
think
Tom,
about that. Think about that.
you
Yeah.
you
Just
talk
want to
about
get well.
education and that yours has been a little bit unique, not just reading self-help books, but it's come through your experience as well. Um, Kilimanjaro was the first mountain that you climbed, and you took a pretty powerful lesson away from that, not just
Mhm.
about how to climb a mountain. Can you tell our listeners about what was the most important lesson from going to Kilimanjaro and experiencing the people there?
Well, I was expecting a difficult climb, and I had these expectations before I went. And but I was excited about the adventure of being in Africa, climbing the highest peak in the world that is not associated with a mountain range,
Mhm.
right?
Just stands on its own.
It stands on its own. Yeah. And it's sort of this iconic place. But when I got there and we had some porters that were helping us carry up all this gear and using the gear, and as we went higher and higher and higher, and the porters there every day, as they're climbing, they're hiking with us and carrying some of the heavy loads, um, they were always singing. They were always singing. And at the end of the climb, they they sang to us, but I noticed that they were always happy. And here were some people that I found out that they were earning $3 a day
Wow.
to do what they do. And it was, I mean, obviously hard, strenuous. They were the Sherpas of Kilimanjaro, if you want to look at it that way. And I come back to the United States, and we're just miserable, we're unhappy, we're unsatisfied. We don't know, suicide is just, I've had lots of friends commit suicide. And that's I don't know if you can hear my dog.
Oh no, I can't.
Oh, okay.
He wanted to join the podcast today. That's great.
Yeah, he did. Um, but that was very powerful to me, that it's not about money, right? It's not these external things. They were happy to serve. That's what I took away from it. They were happy to serve. And they were so joyful about it. So, and but I think a lot of it was gratitude.
Mm,
Gratitude for earning $3 a day. Imagine if that was the case here, earning $3 a day. I mean, there'd be riots in the street, you know.
right.
And you know, I every day, I mean, my journal here, I'm doing a gratitude journal. I'm on day 72 of 365 days of gratitude, just writing things, facing my fears, courage, love for discovering my divine power within. Just, or the day before was I'm breathing, or family, or whatever I'm feeling in the moment. But
Yeah.
starting the day with some gratitude and things really, you know, it helps me to ground myself in happiness and joy, happiness and joy. And I think we should start our day with gratitude. But that was a big takeaway for me when I went to Kilimanjaro. And these were people from the Swahili tribe, and I was just like honored to be with them. I mean, it was an incredible experience, and it was more incredible than the climb itself.
It
And
seems like
really,
people with gratitude, they tend to be more observant from my perspective. And I think observation always precedes gratitude, because we have to pause and think. We have to recognize what is around us. We have to see what it is that's in our life that can and is beautiful. And when we realize that, we naturally will feel a sense of gratitude for it. As you mentioned, just waking up and breathing, sometimes that in and of itself can be a great gratitude moment. The fact that you don't have to think about breathing, the fact that you can do so many other things and your body will just breathe on its own. But then you also have control of your breath when you want to, either in order to either calm yourself or amp yourself up for whatever activity it is that you're doing. I mean, what a powerful thing. I mean, pausing, observing, and then going deep into gratitude. Now, I'm curious, though, Tom. So you've gone from natural Mr. Universe to standing on top of some of the world's tallest peaks. Talk about the difference in accomplishment. How did it feel to stand on one stage and then essentially stand on some of the tallest stages?
well, the bodybuilding was a very scary thing for me. You're exposing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
almost to just to show the body that you've created and dreamed about. My heroes were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Franco Columbu and Frank Zane, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I was very honored to uh, three separate times train with Frank and learn from him. And I learned a lot about the body and nutrition and how to, that self care. And then getting up on stage, really being vulnerable, right? To do these poses and movements and to showcase your body. And that was like a 6 year journey, 6 year, and I learned a lot, and I left the sport because I saw the sport from my perspective wasn't a healthy sport. I see people backstage passing out because they're trying to dehydrate for 4 days by
Right.
not drinking any water,
Right.
or or win at any cost by trying to take steroids. Win at any cost. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care what the outcome is going to be. I want to and I'm like, something's wrong here, you know. But there was a lot of takeaways for me. I really did a deep dive into nutrition and how my body responds to the nutrition. And from fasting and intermediate fasting and carb depletion, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. And it was to win on stage was very gratifying, but it was more fleeting than anything else. But I was honored by it because I put in a lot of hard work. And I was at the airlines, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'd bring bags of cooked chicken and yams and broccoli with me on trips,
The pilot's got bigger luggage than the lady in first class.
But you
Instead of shoes, you've got chicken.
but those are the things that, you take the criticism and you overcome the fears, right? And so
Yeah.
the overcoming the fears just it 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 brought me to the stage, and I was up on stage and, doing these amazing things. And the same thing, it's different. I see the mountain climbing, and I get more emotional about the mountain climbing because the struggles are so hard, because you could lose your life
Right.
doing it. You can
Big,
lose your
big
life
risk.
taking big risks, but I put in the time and energy, obviously. But standing on top of some of the highest peaks in the world, um, and what I would do was, after I'm done crying, or because that's how emotional it is,
Hmm.
I'd be in tears. And I first thing, when my mom was alive, I would call her. You can see I get emotional
I love it.
just thinking about it now,
Yeah.
you know. But um, the but for a small moment in time, you're up on the peak for maybe 5 minutes because the weather is horrific, or maybe 20 minutes because you got to get down, right? And those are the moments that I live for. Just those small moments, and it could be a whole year of training and struggle for that one little moment. You could look at any high level athlete, say an MMA fighter or a boxer. That one moment when the struggle was real, getting there, and the win, and being in the arena and the win, and they hold your hand up, and you've won, and it's a fleeting moment,
Mm.
but it's a moment that shows that you struggled for years to get to that point. And once you reach one mountaintop, for me, there's always another.
Yeah.
There's always another. But the point is the growth that I've learned along, and the lessons that I've learned, and these climbs that I've done. It turned into it was a physical thing, but it turned into a more spiritual and mental thing for me to mentally prepare. The visualization that I'm on the summit. Because I physically do that. I sit and I visualize myself being on the summit. And usually on a big goal like this, it becomes so much bigger than you've imagined. It's almost 10 times more. When I was in Antarctica, I had the opportunity to get on a call with
I
Robin
was just
Sharma.
going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was because I sent him my book. I'm like, I'm going to send my book to this guy, Robin, and he called me, and and it was a goal of mine to be up on stage with Robin Sharma, because I believe in a lot of his leadership. I take from him, a lot of his leadership stuff, and for me, it's powerful. And so um, I told him, he actually invited me to a summit event in Zurich, Switzerland. And I said, I can't go because I'm going to be in Antarctica climbing the highest peak down there. And he was like, what's going on with that? What are you doing? And I told him the whole thing. And I said, hey, while I'm in Antarctica, you're going to be in Zurich doing your summit event. It was perfect. I'm like,
Yeah.
you
I'm
know,
on a summit. You're going to be doing a summit. Yeah. This is,
exactly.
I got to tell you, this is one of my favorite stories of all time. When you told me this the other day, I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. We got to make sure we get this one on.
Yeah. And it was surreal. It was surreal. And I threw myself out there because I told him, I said, the dates you're proposing for your summit event in Zurich is when I'll be either on the summit of Vincent Massif, or on the side of the mountain preparing, or, because it's up to the mountain whether or not it's going to let you summit,
Yeah,
right?
the
It's up to
weather's going to tell you.
exactly. And he's like, "What are the odds you're going to pull that off?" I said, "100%."
Mm,
I said, "I can call into your event with my satellite phone because we always carry a sat phone with us."
mhm.
And he's like, "What are the odds you're going to?" 100%. I got this, Robin. Not to not to worry. Well, it almost didn't happen because the day that we were to call in, and we were at we were at base camp because there was a storm brewing where we were in the beginning phases of a horrific windstorm in Antarctica. And I was in my little two-man tent, and it was 9 a.m. Antarctica time, and it was 1 p.m. in Zurich, and I was scheduled to call in. And the call was going to be from Antarctica to New York and connect with my wife, and she was going to connect me with Robin on stage. Speaking to Steve Wozniak was there and some other,
Mm.
high level people, and I'm like, you know, this will be perfect. But we were in the beginning stages of a storm, and it was even better because we made the connection. I'm bundled up in a lot of my gear and with my sleeping bag over me, trying to stay warm, and my little sat phone propped up in my earpiece. And we made the connection. I get the stage manager, and he's like, "Wow, we got you, Tom. Robin is on stage. He's going to introduce you in a minute. Just hang on. I'm going to put you on pause." I was like, "No,
Like,
you
don't put
can't
me
put
on
it.
pause. Storm's
Don't,
coming in, buddy.
don't." And the winds were howling, and the tent is rattling, and after 9 minutes, they kept me on hold for 9 minutes.
Wow.
Um,
Nerve wracking.
Robin, yeah, I'm like, because the connection is made with LEO satellites, low Earth orbit satellites
Yeah, so they're
circling.
moving.
They're moving,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So, and the call went through, and Robin introduces me, and the talk was going to be fear, overcoming fear. And how perfect could that be? I'm in Antarctica. I'm in the middle of a maelstrom, and to talk about fear.
Standing
And,
on Vincent Massif.
it just, and that's why I say my goal was to be on stage, but I was on like a global stage at that point
Yeah.
and talking to these, high level business leaders about overcoming fear and being in it, stepping into the moment, you know. And the call lasted for, I think it was 17 or 18 minutes. And then the call dropped. But and then our tent was destroyed. We were hanging on for dear life for hours and hours. But we embraced it. We were prepared, right? We were prepared, but sometimes you just don't know. I mean, people perish in some of these places, and nobody's coming to get you, right?
Right. Right.
Nobody's coming to get you.
Yeah.
Um, 2 days later, we were on the summit of Mount Vincent Massif, and I was calling home. I was calling to Rhonda, my son, and just, you know, embracing the joy and the happiness and the fulfillment for only a moment. But, that moment in the tent talking to Robin Sharma, that was a beautiful moment. I mean, obviously, I'll never forget that. And that's what, this moment here, right now. To me, this is a beautiful moment because I get to share more with
Yeah.
with your audience and with you. And you're so dialed in. You just kind of you have this knowing, right? You have this knowing on what we're talking about, the evolved man, people evolving into, or at least your journey is you want to see people evolve into their purpose, into their dharma, into their better selves, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it takes struggle. It takes struggle and risk and overcoming and embracing fear, self-love. There's so many different dynamics of it. And, that's where this journey that I'm on helps me to help you, maybe,
Yeah.
helps me. It definitely helps me.
Well, it's beautiful when we talk about these beautiful moments. I've pondered on this idea for quite some time, that much of life is a journey. There are some times where it feels like a slog, and we're having to just work tirelessly towards certain things. And then every once in a while, we have these moments where we have a summit type experience where we can see the beautiful vistas. We have the whether it's a moment of calling your mom on top of the mountain, being on stage with Robin Sharma, but while being in a different part of the world, or winning a Mr. Universe contest. I mean, you've stood on and experienced many beautiful moments, and in the midst of that, have also, been challenged along the way. You've also had an opportunity to meet and work with and get to know some of the top people in multiple industries. I mean, you've had an opportunity to climb with legendary climber Dave Hahn. You've trained with
Yeah.
three-time Mr. Olympia Frank Zane. You fly some of the wealthiest and most accomplished athletes around the world. You are friends with many people of significance. And I'm curious, because I know we're coming up on our time. I'm curious, Tom, for someone who may be listening to this and they're overweight, they're struggling, they believe that there's something inside of them that is larger than who they currently are. The outsized shape of their body is just a representation of a false input, that it's the size of their soul that really matters, and they want to express that in a much more comprehensive way. They want to become evolved. They want to look better, feel better, and experience things. What's the best bit of advice that you can give them?
That if I can do it, that they can do it. That may sound really, really simple, but it is simple. It takes with taking one small step. And I tell people, pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone. Call a friend, call a personal trainer, call whoever it is. I picked up the phone and called Frank Zane
Mm-hmm.
on his number, and okay, I asked the question when I wanted to fly helicopters. I had to get up the courage and ask the director of flight operations for Aetna and Cigna insurance companies because they had a big flight department, jets and helicopters. And I'm like, how do I do that? And that's where I got the question, well, how old are you? Well, you're probably too old. And, where did you go to college? I didn't. Well, no, I don't think you can, you know, I don't think you can do it, Tom. So, it's mostly, so you're going to get the no's, but just start with asking a question, you know, and start with yourself. Ask yourself the question of what do I want? Right? You mentioned it earlier, and that's what I ask. What do I want? I want to learn how to fly I want to be a helicopter pilot. That's what I want. And then I stepped into that. Then I wanted more, right? Then I wanted more. I wanted to do more. I saw what I had become, and I'm like, I can become more. I want to become more. And so that just pick up, if you have listeners that are struggling, I would suggest to them to call you, to pick up the
There you
phone,
go. Yeah.
listen,
Give us
call
a
you,
call.
ask for the help. You may get they may get a no, but if they're going to be asking you, I doubt they'll get a no. But the no's will turn into yeses, and the no's are there for a reason. They're part of the struggle, right?
Mhm.
Because you need to figure out either to go over, under, around, or through.
Yeah.
But just ask the question. That's where I would tell them because that's what I did. I asked a question and it changed my life. But I got a no. But then it forced me to ask another question of somebody else and I got a yes. And then I had to start, this whole process. And the process led me to where I'm at right now. And, I mean, I've met some, like you said, I never thought, I've met Ralph Lauren and Michael Jordan and just, you know, owners of teams and just on and on. And you know what I found out? They're just like me.
Yeah.
They're just like me. Or maybe they want to be like me, you
I
know?
was going to say many of them probably want to look like you or move like you or be like you.
Yeah, and and that's for me, that's not the goal. For me is to help educate people and show them, that you can live an amazing life.
Mm,
You can live this, but it's an evolution, right? Going back to the evolved man, it's an evolution, it's a journey, and the journey never ends. You think there's going to be an end goal, but if you're thinking of the end goal, you may be missing a piece of the journey because the
yeah.
journey is day by day, moment by moment, and the journey is where the growth happens. Right? If you talk to anybody, what's his name from who created Spartan races? I
Oh,
forget.
yeah.
I
I
forget the
forget his name.
founder.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I look at all these people, and I take what I need. I'll read the books, I'll listen to the podcasts. I'm a voracious reader. I'm a voracious reader, and that that has helped me. And I've failed big time. And now, I'm at a point where, okay, there's lessons here. What do I need to change? How do I need to pivot? How do I need to, because I still have that want. I want to climb Everest. I want to write more books. I want to do more speaking. I want to do more podcasts. I want to, excuse me, show people that you can live an amazing life. And this is the only life that you have. This is it. As far as I know of, I don't know if there's if there's going to be
Oh,
another
we'll see
journey.
if there's take two, right?
That's
Yeah.
but going back to your listener, just start asking questions and start with yourself. What do I want? Do I want to become thinner or do I want to lose weight? That's what I want. Well, okay, how do I do it? Start doing research. Just ask. Okay, I mean, you're healthy and fit, and or send me an email or whatever it is. Just start asking questions. And that's what I did. I started asking questions.
So
And
many
that,
people that are willing to help. I think that's the thing. When you've accomplished a certain uh, something, right? You have some modicum of success in one area or another. I've rarely had people just flat out tell me no. And I've been ghosted at times by people, whether I say, hey, I've got a podcast, would you like to come on? And sometimes it's crickets, but more often than not, like you, when I asked, I got a response. I got something and often was surprised by the kindness and the generosity of people. You mentioned Frank Zane. I had the same experience with Frank. I actually had a great experience with Larry Scott, who was the very first Mr. Olympia.
yeah.
Larry trained and coached me for some time, and we became very good friends. And it all started with me calling, getting him on the phone and telling him that I had a mission and a purpose to transform millions of people's lives and I needed to learn from him. And he told me no. He says, I don't do that anymore. I said, but no, you don't understand. I need to learn from you. And so just tell me what it takes. And his assistant called me up later on and said, I don't know what you did because Larry never does this anymore, but he'll meet you here this day, this time, and he'll give you as much time as you want. So
Wow.
just asking and just being curious and putting yourself out there, leaning into the fear with a sense of faith. Tom, I know we're coming up on our time. You have written a blog post that's going to be going out to talk about the evolved man. Um,
Yes.
so let's talk about that. But I also want to just give our listeners a rundown because I know we've teased a lot of different things. I mean, you've won Mr. Universe. You have stood on top of 6 of the 7 of summits. You have flown helicopters and jets. You've become a chef, an inventor. You have a product called Total Motion 360, which I absolutely love. You have done so many things. Where can people follow your journey and learn more? And I apologize. The books. Where can they learn more about you and continue to follow what you're doing?
Well, I do have a personal website. I have a Total Motion 360 website, which would connect you to my personal website, but uh, on the World Wide Web, tomfabbri.com, and there's some blogging on there. There's the adventures, um, the struggles. I talk about the struggles in there, and we also sell the books on there, and you can find the books on Amazon. Ageless You, and then Ageless You Adventure, and we're repurposing Ageless You Adventure, and then I'm just dabbling in another book that I desperately want to write, From Zero to Hero, Made in
Mhm.
America, coming
Love
from
that.
nothing and then just being grateful for what we have here and making something of myself. And if I can do it, you can do it, kind of thing. But tomfabbri.com or totalmotion360.com or Amazon. so
And
um,
and the blog. I know that you've written the blog. I know we're coming up on time. Do we want to put the link to the blog in the bio and have people read it? How you doing here?
well, I haven't put it on my website. I wanted to send
Okay.
it to you, so you can have it.
Oh, I
You know,
love it. I love that.
yeah. But
Okay.
I'd like to read it. I think it would
Please.
be appropriate for what you're doing, because I'm like, this is exactly what I'm doing,
Yeah. What a
and when I
gift.
found out, the evolved man, that's,
That's you.
that's, well, that's you, this is what you're doing. This is
I
what you're
tell
doing.
people the evolved man is not me. It's my guests and it's them as the listeners. I didn't come up with the evolved man to say I am. I came up with it with the question. So yeah, I what a gift. I'm excited to hear.
Okay. The evolved man. In today's fast-paced world, the concept of the evolved man has become increasingly relevant. This archetype represents a new era of masculinity, masculinity, one that embraces a spectrum of qualities traditionally seen as either masculine or feminine. Vulnerability, creativity, strength, courage, love, self-worth, confidence, self-love, and fear are an integral to this evolved understanding of manhood. Vulnerability, often seen as a weakness in traditional masculinity, is a cornerstone of the evolved man's strength. It allows for genuine connections with others, fostering relationships built on trust and understanding. Creativity follows closely, serving as a tool for self expression and problem solving, enabling the evolved man to navigate life's challenges with innovative solutions. Strength and courage have always been associated with masculinity, but the evolved man redefines these traits. Strength is not just physical, but emotional and mental, supporting oneself and others in times of need. Courage extends beyond bravado, embodying the bravery required to face one's fears and insecurities head on. Love, self worth, and confidence are pivotal in the journey of the evolved man. Love encompasses not just romantic love, but also love for oneself, others, and the world. Self worth comes from recognizing one's inherent value, while confidence is built on the foundation of this understanding and the courage to be oneself in all circumstances. Self love is perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of the evolved man. It challenges the notion that self care and prioritizing one's needs are selfish, instead, asserting that they are essential for a healthy and fulfilling life. Lastly, fear is not something to be avoided, but faced. The evolved man knows that growth often lies on the other side of fear. making it a powerful catalyst for personal development. In essence, the evolved man is a blend of qualities that defy the rigid stereotypes of old. This new paradigm of masculinity encourages a holistic approach to life, where emotional intelligence, resilience, and authenticity lead the way. It's a call to all men to explore the depth of their being, embracing all facets of themselves in the pursuit of a more balanced, fulfilling existence. That's it.
Wow. That is beautiful. Thank you so much. What a beautiful gift. I mean, the words are powerful. It feels like, Tom, you reached inside of my soul, pulled everything out, and were able to articulate that better than I've ever been able to.
Well, this is yours. I'm going to send it to you. Okay. And so you can post it and share it. And, I think you're on this amazing journey to, and when we need it more than ever, right? We
Mhm.
need it more than ever. And you're
We
out there
do.
talking about it. We
Yeah.
do. We
Yeah.
need leadership. We need courage. We need to overcome these fears that we have that we're not enough. And we
Yeah.
are enough. We are
Yeah.
enough. So
Yeah. Well, what a beautiful gift. I will make sure that we post that for others to read. Tom Fabbri, what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I've got to say, one of the things that got me into podcasting, I got into radio, I don't know how many years ago, had a radio show for a period of time. And then I started the podcast because I thought I want to learn from very fascinating and interesting people. And I want to have this conversation. And it's been a great surprised blessing to be able to connect with people like yourself that I would have never met in any other way, and to develop connections and friendships in a way that is fascinating in our day and age, right? Just as you were able to stand on stage by not being on stage, the fact that you and I can be at opposite ends of the country and get to know each other and have this conversation today, what an amazing gift that is. So thank you so much. I hope that this can be episode one of many where we have you on the Evolved Man.
well, it's an honor. Obviously, for me, it's an honor to share, to give, to learn from you. I mean, you're so, I'm listening to you, and you're so in tune to what you're doing, and you're very well educated in it, and always, but you're, you know, reaching out to people and sharing it with the world. Um, that takes a lot of courage. I,
Yeah. Well, thank you very
because
much.
because you don't know, right? You just don't know what's on the other side,
Right,
right?
right.
You don't know. But I commend you and thank you, and um, hopefully, I'm hopeful that there'll be more,
There will be
you
for sure.
with the evolved man.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
appreciate it.
Tom Fabbri, once again, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
All right.
Grateful, grateful. Stay blessed.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode of The Evolved Man. If you're learning from and gaining value from this podcast, please subscribe to the Evolved Man newsletter, where I can support you even more in your personal evolution. I want to help you reverse engineer your success. The Evolved Man newsletter is like getting a free coaching session to keep you moving forward on your path of personal success. Go to theevolvedmanpodcast.com to sign up today. If you found value in this episode, you can give us up to a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify and share it with your network. That's the best way to support the podcast so we can continue to get great guests and provide you with the best wisdom for your daily life. Until next time, keep evolving.